Good morning, sir. Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. There we go. Thank you very much.
So we're now here at Glee at the NEC, and we go around and talk to a few stands. So I'm with Ian on the Fothergills stand. So Ian, what can you tell us about some new products you have?
Okay, well, we're still in front of a little range that we brought out this year called For Little Gardeners, and it's really aimed at gardening with children. So obviously the children are not going to go and buy it, so it's aiming at parents and grandparents, and it's really about just being fun and looking lively and getting children into the garden and having something to do with either parents or grandparents, because they love it. They love getting out there, getting their hands dirty, being involved. So it's a small range. It's 8 flowers, 8 vegetables, including the all-time classics that everybody's known about and grown, no doubt. Things like giant single sunflower. Everyone wants to grow a giant sunflower.
That's still my favourite.
Yeah, it's perennial favourite, those ones. Super easy to grow.
Yeah.
You know, they're quick. You can almost see them growing. Not quite, almost. But they're quick results, and a great thing for kids, because you've got the process of growing, but you've also got the end result. So what do you do with it? You know, you can use the seeds for feeding birds. You know, they're potentially edible if you go and do a bit of roasting. So there's all kind of things you can develop with children and talk to them about. So
excellent.
Nice and easy, but fun. Yeah.
So what do we have here?
So we got this is so. I guess with children, it's all about doing things that are easy and quick.
Yeah.
So these are easy seeds to grow. This is the real quick end. So this is super fun. Just a little ceramic or series of ceramic collectible pots with different themes. So the theme, this one you've got marine animals, there's jungle animals and other things in the collection there.
So it's a little pot with seeds in.
It's a little pot with seeds in, and it's got a little pellet of compost in there, which I probably won't be able to open now because it's all sealed down, so I won't do that.
Don't worry.
There's a little pot, little pellet of compost in there that you just wet up, and then the seeds go on there, and the seeds are just grass. So it's growing the character with a little hairstyle.
Oh, excellent! Little Mohican.
but nice and quick, very easy to do indoors. So not weather dependent. Doesn't need a garden. So, you know, if you want to get into growing and you have no garden, you live in a flat, well, that's a good starting point if you've got nowhere else
and
to go.
That's an important point, because a lot of the media you see is quite frankly fairly rich people with big gardens. So people forget that there's people who've only got a balcony, or they've only got a few pots on a bit of pavement.
Weirdly, I think there's a bit of perception that you have to have a big garden, or it's people with big gardens. But actually gardening's quite democratic in that way, is that actually you don't. But you do need to just garden to whatever level you've got. So literally, if you have nothing other than a windowsill, you can garden. This is gardening, and I guess that's the other thing is, you know, people talk about gardening and they think it's a shed full of tools and a lot of knowledge and speaking Latin. It's not. It's just growing something. That's gardening. It can be, you know, hair on a little animal character. That's gardening. It's growing and nurturing, and that particularly for children, getting that idea of having to care for something is a brilliant life lesson, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And that carries through, you know, into later life. And what we hope here is, well, two things, I guess. One, you've got a great source of entertainment that parents can dip into and grandparents can dip into, getting children out in the garden and getting them involved in things they're both interested in. But it's also just planting that in their mind. And they'll go away and they'll do other things when they're teenagers and their 20s. There are other exciting things. I hate to say it, more exciting than gardening maybe. But when they come back, you know, and rediscover it, which people often do, usually when they get some kind of property, that'll be there in their mind. You know, I know it was with me, and I gardened with my kids who are now grown up, and they're now coming back and discovering gardening. So it's planting that in their mind for them to come back, and it gives them good memories to sort of come back to. But there's lots of things to be learnt and to be got out of gardening that they can benefit from, for sure.
Excellent. So we'll move on to one of your other products over there.
Okay.
So what have we got here?
So this is our DT Brown seed brand, and this is new this year. It's we've got a number of different seed brands. And the product itself, if you look across seed, there's an awful lot of product you can buy, hundreds of different, probably thousands of different varieties of seed. But what we're looking to do with the different brands we've got is try and position them in a way that they appeal to different groups of people.
Right.
So one of the big things that we're looking at the moment is people come to gardening for lots of different reasons, so there's lots of different motivations. Some people really love flowers, some people want to just enjoy the activity of gardening, other people want an end product that they can eat. So lots of veg growers out there. And there's a big traditional market of people who've grown veg on allotment plots and are happy to do that and buy seeds and kind of know what they're doing. But there are other people who are enthusiastic about different things, and what we want to do is try and draw them in to being gardeners and growing from seed because of their other interests. So what we're trying to do with DT Brown is to appeal to people who have got an enthusiasm for food, like enthusiastic about where it comes from, food miles, whether there's chemicals have been used on it, and really enthused about the end result of it. And who are not necessarily gardeners, if you see what I mean. So we're not wanting to talk to
sustainably minded foodies.
Exactly. Yeah. So what we've done is looked at the packaging in a slightly different way. So we moved away from the more traditional approach of a picture of the end result as a kind of harvested vegetable, and included a culinary image in it. So it's changing the feel and the look to tilt much more towards food, so food magazines, what you'd see maybe in grocery, and really appeal to that kind of from the food end working back. So varieties that you'd know if you're into growing your own veg, a spectrum of different things to grow, so it's not a huge range, but 120 varieties across the two stands here, but a good spectrum from all the kind of things that people would want to grow, from beetroot through to salads and that kind of thing. But it's combining this kind of serving suggestion bit at the bottom of the packet with the more traditional image of the harvested crop at the top.
Right.
So what we want to do really is take this out of garden centres in the places where gardeners will tend to go and try and put it in front of people who are not necessarily gardeners. So that might go into, say, a grocery outlet, a supermarket, somewhere away from the traditional gardening. And we're hoping that people will see that and think, oh yeah, that appeals to me from a food point of view. I'd like to grow my own. So we'll sort of draw them in, try and increase the number of people who are getting out there and growing stuff themselves.
I see you've got a QR code on the back here.
Yep.
Is that any significance there?
So because this is all new packaging, what we wanted to do is put a unique code on each of the packets so that we can eventually get to the point where we can have rotating recipes and hints and tips specifically around that individual variety.
So that code's referencing food options?
So at the moment it doesn't, so because we're at the starting point, that will take them to a blog page that will talk about growing veg generally.
Right.
But over time what we'll be doing is adding more and more specific things. So once we've got everything on there, it could be some very specific cooking tips, harvesting tips around that one individual variety. So basically, as you see them, keep scanning them, and there's more and more information is going to be loaded on over the next few months and years.
Okay. I better get this back in the right place, actually.
That's the challenge, playing Snap. So that's the idea of that range, and a part of that is this little range here called microgreens, which is probably the quickest, best entry point for growing veg if you're not a veg grower. Probably made trendy by the likes of Jamie Oliver and people like that, who are always throwing over herb seedlings over things. But truly super quick, crop within 7 days, some slightly longer, full of flavour, packed with nutrients, don't require soil. Just a little plate with some wet tissue on is enough. We have little growing kits, but you don't even need that. So, if you're averse to having soil in your kitchen, then that's a great place to start. So, but again, it's really aiming at food enthusiasts.
Windowsill gardening.
Windowsill gardening. Adding flavour. Really good starting point, and that's all part of that range as well this year.
Excellent. Well, let's move on to the next. So, on to our third product. What have we got here?
Okay, so this is our propagation range. So obviously seed needs growing in something. There's lots of seeds that you can just put into the soil, grow it directly where it's going to develop into a mature plant. Excuse me. But there's a lot of seeds that need starting off somewhere and then planting on outside or in pots or grow bags. Typically things like greenhouse crops, tomatoes, aubergines, those kind of things. But there's a whole range of other ones that can benefit from being started off early or in a more controlled environment. So we found, seed is our main business, and we found that there's been quite a lot of complaints coming back about germination, mainly around the shift away from peat-based compost.
Right.
So peat's a very, very good medium to grow in, but there's some environmental issues around it. And there's obviously a lot of pressure to move away from it, and that's right. That all makes sense.
I think that's coming into policy, isn't it? Soon?
So it's not come into law. There was talk about it, and I think it didn't actually happen at the time they were talking about it. So peat's still available, but a lot of retailers particularly have moved away from that anyway, even though it's not illegal or there's no legal issue around it.
But from a sustainability standpoint, it's best to come away from it, isn't it?
Exactly, it is. Yeah. So there's issues around carbon release mainly, and there's scientific sites of scientific interest that are protected, beautiful peat moors that are not being dug up anymore, which is good. So that's a positive move. The issue that's created is that there's not an obvious place to go as a growing medium. So there's all sorts of different growing mediums out there which are peat free. Some of them are processed waste, some of them come from bark, some of them come from coir, there's all sorts, and some of them are very, very variable. And what we're seeing is people are being put off seed growing because they're getting poor results as a result of their seed growing compost being bad, basically. Right. So for seed sowing, compost needs to be of a certain type, and the more variable it is, the more likely you are to have poor results. So from a seed company, we want people to have great results. So that's one of the things that we've had a look at and tried to get more control over, and developed a really good specific seed growing compost. Later on, when plants are a bit bigger, they're a little bit more forgiving. So the sort of variability you get in compost is okay. But at seed stage, some of them are very sensitive to high levels of nitrogen, for example. They don't really want high levels of nitrogen, because seeds are amazing things. They come with a little package of life support, which is enough to get them going and growing. And what you don't want is compost that's got too much in it, because it can kill them off, it'll burn the roots, and you can have all sorts of issues. So we've got a range of just one line of seed compost which we launched a couple of years ago, and that's incredibly good. Germination is amazing in it. And that's given people a bit more reassurance and reliability. So kind of the next step on is what they then grow them in. So that we've got the compost, but then where do they put it? Do they put it in plastic pots, for example? Or
no.
So there's definitely pressure to move away from plastic pots.
Big pressure.
You can recycle them and reuse them, obviously, but probably better not to have them at all.
Exactly.
But there's some other benefits in using different products for that. So we've brought in a range of pots and pellets. So from a pot's point of view, we've got these are sort of trays, but there's obviously traditional round pots in various sizes made out of compressed coir, so the fibres from coir, and they're compressed into these various shapes depending on what you need. And the benefit that this brings, apart from the fact that you're not using a plastic tray, is that you don't need to move them on. So you put the compost in, put the seed in, start growing, and because this is very porous, and in fact it expands a bit when it's wet, so it opens up even more, the roots just go straight through the wall. So for anyone that's grown seeds in a pot, you'll know that roots often go round in circles, or if they're square, they kind of get caught in the corner and you have to unpick them a bit when you're taking them out. But with these, you don't have to bother about that. The roots go straight through. When you want to plant them, you just tear these apart, and you see they just pull apart, and you plant the whole thing straight into the soil. So you're not tearing the plant out of its little pot, affecting its roots.
Yeah, and that can be an issue, can't it?
It can be. So
do you hold the leaf? Do you hold the stem? And how hard do you pull? And,
very often it can shock the plant. When you transplant, you get this thing called transplant shock, and it will just stop growing. And sometimes it's enough for it to just die. So it's making things easier because you don't have to fiddle around with that. More reliable because there's reducing that shock issue, and it will carry on growing through. It's a natural fibre that will just break down in the soil and add a bit of nutrient back in and a bit of moisture retention, and it makes life a lot easier when you're taking that plastic out of the system. So we've got that as a range, to say little trays or square pots there, and then a range of various different sizes depending on what you're growing. So you might start off something in a smaller pot to transplant into a bigger pot if you're going to keep it growing in a greenhouse, for example. or if you're doing something like cuttings, maybe you put
So
it into a
literally you
larger
can
pot,
get one pot and put it inside the other pot.
to a bigger one. If you want to grow that, so if you were starting, say, a perennial seed early on in the season, you wanted to look after it and nurture it so it's quite a sizable plant, you would move it on from a small 6 centimetre pot in this case to a 12, and then that will grow a good sizable plant that you could plant out in spring when the weather's warmed up, or a little bit later in early summer. So
Excellent.
makes it much more reliable, reduces, let's say, transplant shock. And but one of the interesting things with roots is you get this thing called air pruning, which sounds slightly technical, but in plastic it's not exposed to the air, and it's in the moist environment around whatever you're growing it in, so it tends to just grow round and round in circles when it hits the edge of the plant. Where it grows through, what you find is the root will go through the hole, and when it touches the air it actually burns off because it's a dry environment, but when it does that it grows more roots out sideways. So instead of having kind of long spirals of roots, you end up with much more fibrous roots, so you actually get more roots as a result. So it's actually increasing the roots as well, so you get a better, stronger plant as well. So you don't get the shock, you get a stronger root system, which then helps it grow away quicker and makes it a more resilient plant. So kind of lots of good reasons, which are not just about reducing plastic.
Excellent.
And then the other things we've got, there's still plastic in here because there isn't really a replacement that we've got at the moment, though that's something we'd like to build on. But these are basically little growing kits which are perfect for things like tomatoes particularly, and peppers.
Yeah.
And this is about making life really easy for people. So if you buy the seed and you want to grow it, you don't need anything else other than this and some water and somewhere to put it.
So we just show people that there.
And what you've got there is a little pellet of compressed coir compost again, with a small amount of nutrient in there, just enough to feed the seed for the time it's in there. And that little disc, when you wet it, will swell up to about 4 times the size, so it'll fill the depth of this tray.
Okay.
So you just put the water in there, cover the pellets over with fresh water, slightly warm. They expand up in about 5 minutes, and then you get a little hole in the top there where you just drop the seed into. So no need to cover it, just drop the seed in. This becomes a little mini greenhouse to pop onto the windowsill.
Oh, right, yeah.
So that sits there in the warm on your windowsill, somewhere light but not direct sunlight, so it overheats, until it germinates. When the seed germinates, take the lid off so it doesn't touch the top and it doesn't get too wet, until it grows on a little bit more. When you start seeing the roots coming out to the side of this, you can plant it on either to a bigger pot like this, or you could put it out into a grow bag or a pot outside if the weather conditions are right. So again, it's about making life nice and easy.
Yeah.
But if you typically had a couple of grow bags and you wanted to just put them out on a patio space or a balcony, all you would need was the seed, put it out at the right time, so you wouldn't start this in January, for example. You'd probably start it a little bit later on in the season. So you're planting out maybe early May, middle of May, when the frosts are gone, and they just continue growing outside. So it's
excellent.
Nice, easy growing.
Yeah.
That's probably the starting point with 10 pellets in there, and then there's bigger versions for people who want to do more, grow more. So if you're doing, a row of bedding plants, for example, marigolds, which are half hardy, you could plant a bed's worth of marigolds in there, and then you just plant those out individually. And the benefit is the same as with the pots, where the roots grow through the side, so there's no, again, tearing seedlings out into another pot.
Yeah.
So you can just move them on. All the roots come with the little pellet. They go with that, transplanted straight into the ground, and then they carry on growing.
Excellent. Right. Well, thanks for your time, Ian.
Okay.
It's been really interesting.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.